Alright, I figured that since I was going to go look at all of the bless effects, you may as well want to see two. And first thing to note is that you get bless points every time you're over 2. In previous games, you would get bless points every time you were over 4, unless you had one of everything, in which case you got an extra. You got, if you had 3 of everything, you got bless points in everything. But if you did not have 3 in the elemental paths or the sorcery paths, and all of the elemental or all of the sorcery paths, so, you know, something like this. In Old Dominions 5, if you did this, you get bless points for earth, water, air, and fire. Now you get bless points for all of them, even if you reduce only one of, you get a bless point for just having 2 in something, which is a kind of big change, because that definitely encourages these low-level blesses. For instance, swimming, defense skill, cold resistance. They made defense skill cheaper. That's... But did they make it weaker? +1 defense skill instead of +2 defense skill? That's got me thinking. I think that it used to be +2 defense skill, so that's actually more expensive. It's got me thinking. Got my noggin jogging, so they say. Let me go look real quick. Old Dominions 5. I'm just comparing the defense skill. Yeah, that's 50%. That is more expensive. That is 50% more Am I saying that right? I don't know precisely how much more expensive it is, but that is more expensive. And they also made... That's interesting. You can't have frost weapons anymore. Okay. I mean, that doesn't matter for this Arco, but you could do funny stuff with later Arcos with frost weapons. People didn't expect it. Alright, let's see. Superior morale. That's morale. Fire resistance. That's protection against fire. Attack skill. +1 attack skill. That is useful for units that have long weapons or have many attacks. Sacred command. That's kind of like a morale boost if you have a lot of sacred commanders. 50 leadership. They made this cheaper than it used to be. It used to be 4 fire. Less units will become filled with righteous fury if another sacred unit is killed in their vicinity. Oh, that's like Blood Surge. Oh no. And Blood Surge still probably exists. Well, anyway, we'll go through all of these to see what they are. Death Explosion is Death Explosion. It's normally pretty bad because your units have to die before it's useful, and the point of having a Bless is normally to make your units stronger. Heat Aura. By the way, heat resistance counts doubles against fatigue damage, or it used to. It should still. Gain a fire shield around them. That's really good if you fight people with short weapons, or people with not a lot of health or protection, because it does 7 armor piercing damage, but if I remember correctly, armor piercing just means you pierce 50% of the armor, so theoretically huge armors can still block armor piercing shots. Additional fire effect. Weapons generally are bad bets for blesses because of how Dominions takes damage into account. So an 8 armor piercing fire damage will normally not do any damage against protection of, say, 18. Or let's see, 12 plus 8. I guess if you're rolling 2 DRN, you basically have to roll double 6s before you damage somebody with an armor of... I guess it's actually pretty... Well, this doesn't get added to your own damage. This is flat by itself. So, for instance, if you rolled a normal DRN roll, which might be 7, you'd be doing 15 damage. And then protection applies. But I mean, you'd be doing half damage, or half of protection would apply. But fire resistance, 10 fire resistance would negate most of these. And by the way, that's protection has a chance to negate it, and fire resistance has a chance to negate it. So this fire damage AP effect could be blocked by 2 independent stats. Less units are surrounded by an aura of unbearable splinter, or a splendor must pass an MR check or be permanently blinded. That's better than awe. The old one was awe. Awe meant that you had to pass a morale check to attack your unit, which meant that mostly humans would normally get through the awe effect, but they'd sometimes fail. Goblins would have a hard time attacking things with awe, and giants didn't care. Giants and elves could just strike right through the awe unless they like failed their morale check horrendously. But this is probably better because it's an MR check, which can normally be harder to get, and units. A berserk unit, for instance, will never fail a awe check because they have like infinite morale, but you almost never have infinite MR, and so this will probably tick more often than all. But that is a hefty bless. That's like fire 7, astral 4. Some people will take it for sure, but this righteous awe is probably gonna be pretty big. But a unit still has to die before it ticks. Righteous death explosion, righteous wrath, fire. That would be that's a mean bless. That's fun. Flight for air is pretty good. Now everyone can be Mictlan for the low price of air died. Good lord. Charged bodies. They upped the amount of damage charged bodies does. And they also made it more useful for... Oh, but did it used to be incarnate only? I swear, charged bodies used to be so bad that it was not incarnate only. I mean, it probably still is bad because you have to get hit before it happens, but still. Let's see. Yeah, charged bodies used to be air 4, no incarnate, and it just dealt 10 armor negating. Armor negating is different than armor piercing. Armor negating truly ignores protection. Shock damaged. Blessed unit will be struck by a small discharge, but not enough to avoid the harm altogether. So you have 5 shock resistance from what I understand here, but you gain you have 5 shock resistance, which means you reduce the shock damage you take to 0, but DRN, or Dominion's random number, will still roll, which is... It used to be 2d6, which means you're going to take on average 7 damage when this rolls if you don't have more shock resistance. It's actually more than 7 on average because of exploding dice numbers. So if you roll a 6, you roll again, basically. And the damage could theoretically stack to infinite, but statistically won't happen. Thunder weapons, 1 armor negating cap damage, plus 3 armor negating fatigue damage. Will affect all weapons except natural ranged weapons. This is good because it stuns people. It's not good because it costs 7 air. Air shield. Less units protected from incoming missiles. 8% chance missiles are negated. Probably useless, but if archers are a thing this game, it will be useful. Weightlessness is new. Blessed units and their equipment become almost weightless. Ignore the weight of heavy armors. That's really good because that means they're probably not going to get encumbrance. And again, the floating trait. Yeah, encumbrance is halved. Spellcasting is still difficult. Mounts will not receive the encumbrance penalty for having a rider. That's potentially really, really good. Air 5, Earth 1, incarnate only. dubious. Storm Flight, can fly in storms. Windwalker, +6 map move. Underrated, super great, makes all of your wizards stronger. Swiftness. They made Swiftness more expensive. It's way harder to stack defense on your units now. Blessed units have Uncanny Awareness and can feel the... That's fun. Unsurroundable +2 for 3 is really funny. I like that. I'm gonna have to review what Unsurroundable does, but that's... I believe it reduces the amount of defense and attack you take for being attacked by more than one side, so... That sounds funny. Far Shot. Blessed weapons increase their missile range by 30%. This is almost always a meme because archers are just bad into minions normally. Blessed units will gain shock resistance, +5 protection, precision. Shock resistance used to be cheaper. Yeah, shock resistance used to be cheaper. Now they're not. Major and minor resistances. Alright, now water, swamps, Winter's Gift. Describe movement penalties from cold climates. This is actually really good if you go cold and you're like a human nation. Sacred units have the swamp survival trait. Makes it cheaper to move through swamps. That's a survival. You also, I believe, reduces the amount of supplies they require while in these provinces. I think the survivals are all great, and you should, but it's hard to make a bless around survivals. Cold resistance, swimming. What? And move unhindered if fighting underwater. Does not grant the water breathing, however. That's interesting. I'm curious if they made it so that people who have water breathing don't become bad at fighting underwater now. Because it used to be they just went underwater and they were fine. Blessed units will be more difficult to hit in combat. Defense skill. This is 33% more expensive because to get 2 defense skill you now have to have 4 water bless points instead of 3. Alright, chill aura. That's the same as heat aura, but for cold it's a different... Instead of having fire resistance to prevent that from damaging you, you need to have cold resistance. Chill aura is probably worse than fire... Well, depends on who you're fighting. Chill aura is probably more common, but it comes in smaller packages than fire protection. Slowing weapons. Slowing weapons is fun, but it looks like it's magic resist negates. Attacks from blessed units make those apathetic and slow unless they can resist the effect. Slow 50%, attack -2, defense -2. That is potentially huge. That's gonna be fun. That's a weapons blessed that matters. Weapons blessed units encode in vitriol. Armors might become damaged. That one might be useful. 7 AP acid damage. That's probably really good because I don't think anybody has acid resistance. So that would be a straight up magic weapons kind of bonus, but it's flat damage. It also destroys armor, which could potentially get through armors. Water breathing. Water breathing has always been a meme because on a map where you require water breathing, you're going to be outclassed by somebody who's underwater to begin with, probably. And then on a map where water breathing gives you an edge, you should really be getting an edge on land. Frost mist weapons. That's fun because it causes fatigue damage, but that's going to be really easily countered by any amount of cold resistance. Because, well, I don't know how much Cold Cloud does. Area 1, Cold Cloud 3. That adds AoE though, at least some AoE to a Weapons Bless, which I guess makes a Weapons Bless more valuable, better than Flaming Weapons Well, thunder weapons has always been kind of viable because it stuns people, but quickness. Quickness has always been viable too. Quickness is the same as it was. Water 9, magic. It used to require magic 3, I think, but now it requires magic 1, which is. Let me check. Oh no! It was always magic 1. As you can tell, I didn't take quickness very often. All right, mountain survival. That's like swamp survival, but for mountains. Or reinvigoration. Reinvigораtion's pretty good, and it's the same. Strength of the earth. Strength of the earth costs also 50% more, or 33% more than it used to. Like the fifth skill. Unbreakable. Unbreakable's normally not picked, because why would you? I've always wanted to pick it because I don't like getting afflictions on my expensive units. But this doesn't prevent that. It only reduces the chance by roughly 3 out of 4. As in, only 1 out of 4 of your units that would have gotten afflictions will actually get afflictions. But they're still going to get afflictions here and there. So what this really saves is, and that's the other thing, because your sacred units should be doing so much damage that they shouldn't be taking much damage in the first place. So getting afflictions on them probably means you're using them wrong. So this isn't super great. There's also a nature spell that is much better than simple resistance to afflictions. Or not nature spell, but nature bless. And we'll probably get there later. But it's incarnate only. Larger is always super situational. Size 9. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Size is different this game because you can have like a size 9 unit now. And like goblins are size 2 now, so you can have 5 of them on a square because squares have 10 spaces instead of 6. So that's gonna be 5 goblins to 3 humans still. I think humans are size 3 now. But we'll see soon. All sacred and animate units, such as sacred statues or telastic animates, will firm their bodies and recover from damage over time. Negates the never heals trait. That's super situational. I'm not sure I've ever seen that one before in a previous Dominions game. Or the bless has been here, but I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody actually use it. I think only Agartha could argue that they would need it or want it, but normally there are better things that Agartha wants, like reinvigoration or fortitude. Resilience of the earth. I like resilience of the earth. They made it cost 6 bless points instead of 5. Yeah, okay. Alright. Gain 10 resistance to fire and shock damage. Hard skin. 6 bless points requires a pretender with at least earth 6. Hard skin's pretty useful, but now that resilient... See, hard skin is 5 protection, natural protection against everything. Resilience of the earth is 10 protection against only fire and shock. I think people are normally just going to pick hard skin. I would think that resilience of the earth should be cheaper, but I guess that's not the case. And then finally, fortitude, half damage from all physical damage. 7 bless points. This is maybe good if you're on a really hard to expand on map and you're going to be fighting indies, which almost never have magic forms of attack. But against the player, they're probably going to have at least some magic form of attack. You might get lucky and they don't. So it's kind of a gamble. But this is definitely, fortitude is definitely the early, I want to crush things and take no damage spell. Hard skin and resilience of the earth are probably more useful later in the game because they provide resistance against magic as well as physical damage. Alright, now we're on Astral. Arcane Command, magic leadership increased by 25. That used to be 10, I think. Yeah, okay, so Arcane Command is now way better. Blessed units will have less vulnerable to magic that can be resisted. Magic resistance is now twice as expensive to get. And at least 1 point segments. Spirit Sight can ignore glamour effects. Can see in the dark without penalties. They made that Astral 3. That used to only be Astral 1. So that's now more serious. Solar weapons. They made solar weapons deal more damage. It deals triple attack to demons and undead. It used to deal only 3 armor-piercing damage, but now it deals 4, and 12 against undead and demons, and that's plus DRN, of course, so 4 plus 7, 11 armor-piercing damage on average to people. Blessed Mage, but you've got to subtract out protection. Most things have like 10 protection, so it's funny. It's funny math. Blessed mages and priests will be able to cast their combat spells at much greater range than normal. Arcane Finesse. Penetrate enemy magic resistance. I've always liked this. I almost never see anyone take it. Spells that do penetrate magic resistance are pretty good, and this increases your odds of penetrating magical resistance, so why wouldn't I take it? Because it requires you to have wizards that are actually casting spells, which may or may not happen. If you take Arcane Finesse, you are probably rush bait, so just be aware. Attack from blessed weapons count as magical, can hit ethereal and invulnerable units without any penalties. You need this for ghosts. If you're fighting ghosts, will affect all weapons except natural ranged attacks. Twist Fate. Twist Fate means that all units affected avoid damage the first time they take it. Fate Weaving is really fun. Anyone striking the unit will have their fates rewritten and suffer from misfortunes for the next few rounds of battle. This is really good. It basically means that you're way more likely to, when you hit the unit, cause them to take massive damage. Because I don't remember it precisely how it worked, but I remember it having something to do with how the dice are rolled. It would increase the chances that you would roll a 6, basically. Or something to that effect, or the opponent would roll really low protection. There was some dice rolling mechanic that Fate Weaving affected, but functionally, it meant that every form of damage you did to the opponent had a higher chance of dealing large amounts of damage to the opponent who was affected by the Fate Weaving effect. Which meant that if you had, say, like solar weapons on your unit, and Twist Fate on your unit, though I'm not sure you could anymore, your solar weapons would be way more likely to trigger on units that had been affected by Fate Weaving. So, Fate Weaving normally got put on units that had more than one attack, or on units that would get hit and then be right next to a unit with multiple attacks, because the unit with multiple attacks would be very likely to deal a lot of damage to a unit that had been affected by Fate Weaving. Fate Weaving Fire Shield, for instance, would normally be pretty good, because when the unit is affected by Fate Weaving, its next attack, it's going to be hitting something with Fire Shield. Alright, Etherealness. Blessed units are very difficult to harm and negate 75% of mundane damage. I believe they also take less damage. They can also pass through solid obstacles such as castle walls. I've met only one person. They made it cheaper, by the way. Now it only requires magic scale level 2 and Astral 8 instead of, I think it used to be Astral 9. It used to be Astral 10 magic 3. That's pretty brutal. So Ethereal is now cheaper. I've met one person who picked Ethereal purely for sieges so that they could get through castle walls. The Mega Brain strategy. Other than that, I have picked Etherealness so that I can destroy province defense with 1 unit very frequently. People laughed at me, and sadly, I never played against them, so I wasn't able to convince them the mobility of the unit and the Etherealness together combined beautifully. But it honestly, I do agree with the people who are criticizing me. Etherealness was too expensive for it to be worth it most of the time. So they made it cheaper. Undying is funny. So Undying is a really goofy bless for... Good lord, the music is super loud. Why is it so loud? Alright. So... Oh, but now the music is quiet. This is the worst. I want the quiet music to be louder, and I want the loud music to be quieter. Undying is really good. Sort of. So, when a unit... While blessed units will fight on even after they've been killed, undying 2 HP. Living units that have died will die for real after the combat, but undead units will survive the ordeal. So, undying basically allows units to go to negative HP. And units with negative HP die at the end of the battle unless they are undead. So undying is situationally pretty good. It's a cheap way. So down here, you can get 1 hit point from resilient, but for undying, you can get 2 hit points. The cost is that you're sort of borrowing against your units. When you purchase a unit with gold, you get a certain amount of value out of that unit. Undying gives you double the value that Resilient does at the cost that your unit is more likely to die, or is just as likely to die at the end of combat, but will give you... You probably understand that the math there is funny, but... Or that's an interesting question. Do you want your unit to be more useful in the first battle that they are in, or do you want your unit to be more of an investment long term? So anyway, Undying, super useful. Some units that have multiple forms, like shape change units, for instance, the Jaguar Warrior from Mictlan, he turns into a Jaguar when he dies, which means that Undying counts double for him. And also, if he only dies once in his human form and then becomes a Jaguar, he will survive to the later stage, or after the battle, because he's changed his shape and now he has positive HP again. Undead Command. Undead Command I think used to be about that good. Let's see, Undead Command... Oh, nope, used to only be 20 Undead Leadership, so now you get 150% more undead per undead command. That's pretty good. I've never really seen anybody pick half dead. I almost once played Relea for... I was gonna rush Burden of Time and make all my guys half dead. I thought that would be really funny. I never pulled the trigger on that though. Mending Bones. Also, you have to take Death 2, and most people don't want to take Death 2, and if they're taking Death 2, they're going to be taking something much scarier than Half Dead. Half Dead is probably super situational. I've never really seen anybody take it. You'd have to do something like meme and pick like terrible game-ending spells like it's not really game-ending, it's just annoying Burden of Time. You're probably never going to take Half Dead. Mending Bones. All sacred units will heal their afflictions over time out of battle. Mending Bones does not work from those who suffer from old age. That's funny. That's recuperation for undead, I imagine. I love that. That's good. I would totally take that. It doesn't require an incarnate, so you could have something that's not incarnate. All sacred, but who has sacred undead units that doesn't take an Awake Expander? Oh well, whatever. Withering weapons. All blessed units get withering weapons. Anyone wounded with a withering weapon will be decayed if they fail a magic resistance roll. This will affect all weapons except natural ranged attacks, such as mind blast and breath weapons. I think the only nation that can make use of this consistently is Ulm, who can forge bows of war very cheaply, but at that point, you're just clowning on people. Withering weapons is normally really bad, because the magic resistance roll means most people, they A, have to get hit by withering weapons, they B, have to not pass their magic resistance roll, which the biggest and scariest units have high magic resistance. And then C, the unit has to be young enough that withering weapons can actually kill them. Withering weapons gives like 5 to 10 years to a unit's life every round of combat, but when your unit is a 1,000-year-old giant that lives for another 1,000 years, then he's going to have to sit there for 100 combat 100 to 200 combat rounds before he finally gets old, let alone die. Humans themselves are like 5 to 10 combat rounds. So they're probably still going to stab all of your dudes before they properly die. I believe that some animals are much shorter, so if you were fighting animals, it might work out for you. Relea, their guys comedically have become old age at 5 years old sometimes, or their little landwalker dudes. So suddenly that's become useful against Relea only, and like not even their big scary dudes, which actually do live for 1,000 years, and only against their like little minor mages, their little communion slaves. So that's potentially a loser. It's a losing scenario when you pick withering weapons normally. I guess you could also make a case that I think Abyssia has like dudes that get old at 15 years old, so maybe it could work against them too. Alright, Stygian Flesh. Blessed units become resistant to non-magical damage. Invulnerability. Invulnerability is like protection, but for things but only for mundane weapons. People normally don't take it because you can get protection from like hard skin. So Death 5 versus Earth 6. Earth 6, 5 protection against everything. Death 5, 10 protection against non-magical weapons. And by the way, Fortitude will always be better than Stygian Flesh because this is damage reduction 10, this is damage reduction 50%. Alright, Reforming Flesh, recovered from damage at extremely high rate, regeneration plus 10. Reforming Flesh is regeneration for undead. It's pretty good. Reanimators, I have used Reanimators once. It's not worth it, I don't think. Well, it might be useful this time because the battles are supposed to be bigger. Any living creature killed by a blessed unit has a chance to rise as a soulless being or fight for its killer until the end of the battle until it is felled once more. Priests also get the ability to command a limited number of undead beings. Reanimation chance 50%, plus 5 undead leadership. I guess there's a chance to be made for like Mictlan or Xibalba where they have sacred flyers that like kill everything in the first round of combat. You could conceivably, in the first round of combat, kill so many units that you get a sizable area of zombies or skeletons at the start of the battle. And then the zombies will essentially act as meat shields for your actual killing sacred units at that point. Because, you know, your units kill the outer layer of enemy units, which become half undead. The inner layer then spends most of their attacks attacking those undead, at which point they are then attacked again by your flying units. And it's okay. There's probably better things you could do. If you just put 8 strength on your flying units, they'd probably kill things way better. Death weapons. Attacks from blessed units are imbued with additional death damage effect that causes disease on the target. Both effects from the death attack can be individually negated by magic resistance. This affects all weapons except natural ranged, and so on. Death weapons is normally really bad because it's only 2 damage for 8 points. 8 points, you get 2 armor negating damage. That's not that great. I mean, I guess it is armor negating, and it is disease, so it's definitely going to kill anything that fails a magic resistance eventually. But the other issue is that if you hit something, if you attack something and it doesn't die, then it's killed you. So death weapons becomes a sort of spoiler ability that only works if you're losing. Because if you're winning, you just killed them outright. So, and I mean, it costs death 8, and for death 8 you could get fear instead, which is 5 fear to like everything nearby, which makes them roll morale checks and just run away, and which means that they aren't fighting you, which means that they aren't killing you, which means that you've won and taken no damage. So fear is normally way better than death weapons. But death weapons is more fun and has more flavor. And causes more funny dice rolls to be made, I guess. Alright, now nature. Resilient, plus 1 HP. It's like undying, but better if you're living and not getting hit. Normally. But that's only blessed units. That's not just natively more HP. Low light vision. That's like spirit sight, but way cheaper. And it only works for dark vision. Poison resistance. Poison resistance is pretty good. It's resistance against poison. A lot of things deal poison at some point. If you're an underwater nation, you might just want to pick poison resistance if you don't natively have it, because so many underwater independents have poison damage. Forest survival. It's like mountain survival, but for forests. Unaging. So if this works the same as it used to, when you recruit units, they are now 1/4 as old as they were previously. This is almost always a good thing, for you. I mean, because normally what you'll be recruiting is 60-year-old wizards who are becoming old and about to get a bunch of afflictions. So, of course, if you could get a 25-year-old wizard or a 20-year-old wizard instead, they've got their whole life ahead of them. They're not going to become sick the next year and then die, which is entirely possible on your other wizards. Alright, poison weapons. This is like death weapons, but it's not incarnate only, which means that it truly can be a spoiler ability. But the trouble is it requires a death scale, and most people who are going to be going for something that... Most people who are going to be going for a death scale are going to want to be awake very early and very active. They are going to be wanting to wait around till turn 36 when their god comes out, getting pushed in. So the death scale kind of counters the idea that you would want to fight a losing battle in the first place. Taking growth is kind of greedy. It's risky, long-term risky, and well, it's just risky short-term too. My point is it's greedy. People punish nations that take too much growth. When people take death, it becomes hard to punish you early on. The way that they punish you is by leaving you alive over a long period of time. So poison weapons, which would keep you maybe alive a little longer because you deal damage to creatures that are attacking you, is sort of counterproductive to the death scale in the first place. Because if you have a death scale, you need to be killing early and often. And poison weapons, it causes a damage of time effect. You should just be hitting things the first time and killing them. So don't pick poison weapons, probably. unless you have a massive brain and know what you're doing, and are thinking of something much beyond what I am. Recuperation, I really like recuperation. All sacred units heal battle afflictions over time outside of battle. It does not work for people who are old. Old people do not get this effect. But if you have expensive sacred units, and they're going to get stabbed in the leg repeatedly and get limps, recuperation fixes those limps, so you don't randomly lose your sacred units when they're crippled and they can't move from province to province. Berserker's really fun. All sacred units, including your wizards, will go berserk when they are wounded in battle. It's not will be able to, it's they will. They will go berserk when they are hit in battle. But they get +2 protection and +2 attack when they're berserk. And infinite morale. It's always good to have at least one berserk unit on a battlefield so you can't rout and lose. But berserk units have a tendency to get themselves killed. They also lose 2 defense, I believe. Barkskin. Barkskin, very difficult to damage. +7, max 10, natural protection. It basically caps you at 10 natural protection. Natural protection can be really good on a lot of units. Barkskin has no effect on spirit form creatures. That is, if you are a ghost, it doesn't affect you. Barkskin is a solid pick because it's kind of like a better version of Hardskin, except that it gives you... It doesn't say here that this happens, but it will probably give you a fire resistance, or a fire resistance malus, which means you're more susceptible to fire damage. Regeneration is really good on units that have high HP, like giants. Blessed units will recover from damage at an extremely high rate. Regeneration 10%. Units that have regeneration naturally will get an increased rate of regeneration after being blessed. Inanimate units are not affected by this blessing. So 10% of your health. If you have 70 health, you will regenerate 7 health every round. If you have 10 health, you will regenerate 1 health every round. Regeneration becomes more valuable on units that have huge pools of health. Which, by the way, Resilient, wink wink nudge nudge, and Undying, wink wink nudge nudge, paired with Regeneration, have great synergy. And now the new magic path, Glamour. This will be interesting. Undreaming. All sacred units are more resistance versus sleep effects. Okay, that's clown. That's a clown move. +4 MMR versus sleep. Can these guys also get Void Sanity? If you know the game, you know that Void Sanity can be kind of useful. Honestly, I think Void Sanity might be more useful than the sleep effect, but that's funny. Heroism. All sacred units gain 50% more experience. Holy crap. Does that stack? It does. Uh-oh. What does this mean? Okay, heroism might be great. That's funny. Quiet Stride. All stealthy units are even more stealthy. That's fun. That's pretty funny. That's going to affect people even when they aren't blessed. So far, all of these things are not bless effects. They're just straight up bonuses. So, Berserker does not, it's all sacred units. Recuperation, all sacred units. That's not just a bless effect. Poison weapons, they need to be blessed. All sacred units. All sacred units, blessed. So, blessed means that it only affects them in battle. When it is all sacred units, it affects them when it's not battle, which is why Windwalker is so good. Let's see. True Sight. Can see through illusions and glamour. Still affected by darkness, however. So, not quite as good as Spirit Sight, but it's close. Blur. Attacking units have their attack skill reduced by 2, but... Okay, that's funny. It doesn't increase their defense like it would in previous Dominions games, but it does reduce the attack of people attacking by 2, so... Also, that's going to mess up funny strats like repel blesses. For instance, if somebody maxed out attack on long weapons, attack skill on long weapons. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I accidentally clicked obfuscate. All sacred units are stealthy. Already sacred stealthy become even more difficult to find. Okay, everybody can be an elf now if they pick this. Blessed units have all 3. That's actually that's pretty good. All 3 is substantially more useful than all 1, which was what you used to get for like Fire 7. Cost Glamour 6 and Fire 2. Oh, wait a minute. Let me check this. Okay, so I go 1, 2. -2 bless. Okay, that's funny. So the math works out a little funny now. Now I need 8 bless points for the bless. I should put this at like the start of the video. So blesses are a little bit different now. You need the points. You need 8 bless points for the bless, but you don't necessarily need to get them from the magic paths. Okay. So I could not do this if I just had those skills. So Glamour 6, Fire 2 does not get me awe. I need Glamour 6, Fire 2 plus 2 bless points. Comedy. Okay. Alright, displacement. Blessed units appear outside their actual location, hard to hit in melee. Attacking skill. Units have their attack skill reduced by 5. Attackers with true sight or spirit sight ignore the displaced condition, as do blind ones. Just be blind, man. Blessed units are shrouded in nightmares. Enemies will see nightmares as real. Fear plus 5. This probably stacks. Well, hang on, I've boned myself. That'll stack with fear. Okay, there are going to be some clownish fear blesses in the near future. Blessed units become very lucky when it comes to avoiding the fatal blow, 75% chance to negate. Luck has always been god tier, especially against units with high strength. Alright, now blood. This will be interesting. We still have blood vengeance, thank goodness. I love blood vengeance. Blood vengeance is true blood. You're supposed to use it. If you pick blood and you don't pick blood vengeance, you are a coward. Alright, blessed units have... You can stack resilient and strong vitae, which is... People can do funny things, and you can get, you know, like 20 extra health on any unit if you just go for blood, nature, hit point blesses. Which, by the way, means that they're probably going to be regenerating 3 health per round if you do that, at least. If you also pick regenerate, but you can't because regeneration and... Well, actually, you can do truly ghoulish things now, because of how this works. I'll show you in just a second. I believe you can do ghoulish things. We will see. Alright, strong vitae, strength of the flesh, now 50% more expensive. Blessed units will have increased strength, strong blood. All sacred units have +5 poison resistance and +8 disease resistance at all times. I like that. That's fun. I would totally pick that because I hate disease. That's probably only really good on Marignon, though, honestly, because they're the guys who are going to get old. That's kind of like an unaging bless, because it means that your guys are going to be less likely to get diseased. Enchanted blood. Blessed units regenerate half a hit point each round to get +1 magic resistance. Profuse bleeding will instantly stop. And that's regeneration without... That's awesome. I like that. That's really good for humans. Humans love that. Blessed units receive a Blood Surge action as soon as they kill someone. Blood Surge effect will last a few rounds and greatly increase the combat abilities of the unit. Which, by the way, in case you're unaware, Blood Surge, Righteous Wrath, I mean, that's attack plus 6, strength plus 6. Yeah, you could get 6 attack, 6 strength, 6 morale, 1 defense, and 1 reinvigoration from having Blood Surge and Righteous Wrath. Flagellants are actually going to become scary now. Good lord, that's gonna be amazing. Blessed units will transfer half of all incoming damage to other blessed friendly units that are nearby. This has always been good because it reduces Blood Bond regeneration is a classic. Unholy weapons. I might be the only person who's ever picked unholy weapons in the history of Dominions. I have picked it purely to spite people like Ashdod. And even then, they have so much hit points, it doesn't really affect them. But yeah, if you're fighting people who have giant sacred unit, or not, I shouldn't say giant sacred units, I should say sacred units that can take damage, this is pretty alright. But you have to know that you're fighting somebody who's going to be spamming sacred units. I believe I got lucky in the game I was in and fought a Pan and completely murdered their centaurs, their sacred centaurs, which unholy weapons is great for that, but nothing else. Blessed units will get the Blood Vengeance trait. Blessed unit is wounded, the attacker must roll MR or get an equal amount of damage. How to really royally mess up wizards. It's really good. Vampiric weapons is new. Attacks from blessed units will drain life force from living enemies. Those wounded will take additional damage that is added to the blessed one's hit points. Armor negating drain damage. Armor negating, which means it goes through armor, which means, oh my gosh. That is potentially really good. And so now, having done all of these, well, first we're going to check to see if we can do our mega clown behavior, which means that we're going to pick, oh my gosh, I can't, well, let's do our thing. I hate clicking. Oh, I can only pick 5? Let's try this again. Oh, I can only pick 5. Okay, alright. Interesting. Okay, I can do that. Regeneration requires Nature 7. Okay, I'm going to take Nature 7. Well, first of all, in old games, this would have been impossible because this would be Nature 5 plus Nature 7, Nature 12. And you can't do Nature 12, but you can't do Nature 7. So, it looks like, but if I can just pick up less points this way. It looks like this is suddenly a valid way to do this, and I bet I can also put something on me like Berserker. Now that's funny. You could really stack blesses this way. That's interesting. Alright, well anyway. So Clown Bless is incoming. That's the ultimate option here. Alright, that's it. I guess in the future I will be making proper a deity for every single nation.